Jake's trying to save him again, right? So he's constantly trying to keep his family together, keep them happy, and as a consequence, the actions he takes actually causes bigger problems as people get lost, people get captured, people are about to die, all the way to the point where he's feeling like in order to save his family, way further along in the film, he should kill the character of Spider. And this is kind of like an Abrahamic moment for him, right? Where it's like the sacrifice
I was thinking
of the
that
son.
for some reason.
Yeah, it was very reminiscent of like
it was
a
a
religious,
very strong biblical parallel.
yeah, yeah. And I think that was somewhat intentional. I'm not. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of A Lost Plot, the podcast by storytellers for storytellers so that we can tell better stories ourselves. As always, I'm your host, Maverick, and today we have back with us our co-host, Avalon, to review the third installment in the Avatar series. That's right, we're talking about Avatar, Fire and Ash. This 2025 American epic science fiction film was, well, the story is by James Cameron. We all know this. This is his, like, magnum opus, if you will, right? But it also includes Rick Jaffa, Amanda Silver, Josh Friedman, and Shane Salerno as additional creators for the story, with the screenplay by James Cameron, Rick Jaffa, and Amanda Silver as well. So, getting right into those initial thoughts, Avalon, what was your initial impression and rating for Avatar, Fire and Ash?
James Cameron does some things with his movie that sometimes I think he does a really good job on some things, and I really like it. And there's other times he does things and I'm just like left perplexed. Like, what was that? What was the point of that? And sometimes, like with this movie specifically, there are definitely things where I'm like, I don't know what the intention behind that was, but if there's another movie down the line, and maybe that would explain this. Like, I mean, because these movies are definitely like there's an overarching story going. Mm-hmm. So if there's a fourth Avatar, maybe some things will thematically pay off in the fifth movie, who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If there's one. So, I mean, I have mixed feelings about the Avatar movies to begin with, but, and I don't know, I actually completely forgot if I was on the second one or not, but my review for this one my score was 5.35.
Okay. So, not terrible. It's in the mid-range, and that kind of was reflected in how you spoke about it. You had conflicted feelings. That makes sense. I also had some conflicted feelings, partially because there was some things that I saw in this film that I went, wow, this is amazing. And we're going to talk about some of those for sure today, but especially in regards to Spider. There are some really interesting things they do with him, but there's also some things I just don't like about him as a character. And because he is a focal point for this film, they do some really interesting things with it. At the same time, I did get a little bit of like a flashback as I was watching this, and I hadn't watched Avatar 2, The Way of Water for a minute since we last reviewed that. But I was recalling things that I went, oh, okay, I thought this kind of happened before. And I did go back and look, and there was a kind of a strong semblance of repetition going on in the third one. So I was, that was unfortunate. We'll get into that for sure.
No, that was my other thought. I just remembered. My other thought coming out of the movie was the third one felt like an amalgamation of the first and two movies put together. Like, I could see things from the first two movies that were repeated in this third one, plot points, story-wise. So, yeah,
and at the same time, I think that there are some things they did in this one much better than in the last one, and so I think that there is actually some ways that I still very much enjoyed this film, in spite of it not being like one of my favorites personally, right? And there's some of those that goes to James Cameron's world building, which is just phenomenal. And even some of the technology they use to make this film believable, which we don't get into a lot in this, but like how in the last one they developed technology to actually do recordings of mocap suits underwater. That's impressive. Like that's a feat. And then being able to film underwater, right? Like doing all of this stuff to make it as realistic in the body actions and all that as possible. Really good. And so yeah, the world is amazing. My review for it overall was a 6.15. So,
okay.
I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot, but that's not to say there is not problems, and we will get into that today. So, if you're curious, keep watching. We're going to move right along as we always do, but we're going to start off with a summary of the film if you are unfamiliar with it. Now, Avalon, can you give us a 30-second summary of a 3-hour film?
Okay, so I have an hour per 10 seconds, right? So
right, yeah, there you go.
Okay, summary of this movie. So this third movie, well, actually, before I get to the summary, I will make one disclaimer. It's been a while since I've seen the second one as well. And this is one of those few
Sure.
times I was watching going into the third movie. Like, I kind of wish I had rewatched it recently
Yeah.
because of how soon it follows the second movie. And there's definitely like things that come out of the second movie that lead directly into the third one. And it's because the whole movie starts with the one son, shoot, I forget his name.
Neytiri. Yeah, I wrote down every single name I thought was important because I knew I wasn't gonna remember them all.
Yeah.
But yes, the son that died. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, the son who died in the second one. So, actually, just sorry, getting distracted a little bit here. But do you think it's a problem that most people are having trouble remembering the kids' names in these movies? Like, I'm looking around online, and it seems like everyone is having trouble remembering any of these kids' names except for Spider. Like everyone is just like that kid's name. What was his name? It just like
no. The only ones I could remember right off the top of my head from watching the film, like yesterday type thing, was obviously Jake Sully, Neytiri, his wife, Loak, the son, because that's freaking easy, and then Kiri. That's it, and that's because those are the simplest names. And so like once again goes to James Cameron building this world where you can hear like there's clearly cadence and nuance to how the names are developed, and there's some sort of system he has to develop those. So I appreciate that from a world building perspective, but from a remembering and understanding as a viewer perspective, that does make it kind of hard.
Okay, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. But as far as the review the summary. So the movie picks up right after the end of the second movie. The oldest son is dead, and so the family's in a place of grief. Like they are grieving, the clan is grieving, and they're each doing it in their own ways. And you're also seeing Neytiri starting to have a hatred developing for humans in general, and her struggles with that. And Sully kind of getting caught a little bit in the crossfire of that because he was once human. They decide to take Spider back to his original home from the first movie in the beginning of the second movie. So they go with these airships to go to drop Spider off with the original humans and tribe that they used to live at. They're attacked by pirates, by the Fire Clan, whatever their name is. After they get attacked, the family gets split up. They've kind of lost in the jungles as they're being hunted. In the midst of that, Spider almost dies. He gets what's the All-Mother's name? Ewa? Dang it.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. Aowa, I'm pretty sure is it. Yeah.
So the All-Mother spares Spider's life by changing his biology, more or less, making it so that in his moment of death, he's suddenly able to breathe. He's revived, able to breathe the air of Pandora, which no human has been able to do, and he has that connection thing that's on the back of his head that all the Na'vi people have. So they managed to get back together. They managed to go back to the home place, but in the midst of that, the villain from the first two movies, Quaritch, he finds them. He discovers what his son Spider has turned into, and everyone recognizes how this could be pivotal for the humans going forward if they can reverse engineer how Spider is able to survive on Pandora. So the rest of the movie is both a conflict to try to get a hold of Spider, but it's also the humans trying to hunt the whales again from the second movie. They're doing another attempt.
The Tolkien.
Yeah. And so the movie climaxes with the humans, the Na'vi, both the Fire Tribe and the Water Tribe and the tribe from the first movie, all the tribes from the first movie, they all come back together in this big battle and duke it out. So,
yeah.
That's so there's a lot going on in the course of 3 hours.
Yeah. and it'll be, I think even the flow of the whole story is really interesting just
Mhm.
because we'll get into it, but my basic impression was that it starts off really well with this like really defined idea of where the story is going, and then they take all of these side plots and they all go in their own directions, and you kind of go, okay,
Mhm.
what is the central focus? And they kind of bring it back together near the end, with the classic massive battle scene. But yeah, it gets pretty
Mhm.
weird in the
Yeah.
middle. So let's
No,
start it
there's a
off.
lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's start off with that opening scene. You see that there is the death of the son to Tyam, and Jake is mourning this and wants to take care of the family, but the family is all grieving in their own ways with his son Loak and with his wife Neytiri, who starts to really hate humans again, and all of these other characters being involved. What was your thoughts on the opening of the film? Did it re-engage you in this universe and in Avatar beings in general? What were your thoughts?
In some ways, it did okay. I mean, the whole grief aspect was an interesting way to start. Though it does, because it comes straight off of the second movie, it does make it feel less like the beginning of a movie and somewhat more of a continuation of the last movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't so much feel like a beginning so much as a part two or like the start, like continuation of something else. Like it's clear you're supposed to remember who all these characters are, who everything is like all these what happened in the second movie. Hence why I said I kind of wished I had watched the second movie because
Right.
there were definitely like a few moments I got taken out of the movie. It's like, oh wait, yeah, like I had to remember things of the second movie, like oh that human is still alive. Oh yeah, he's because he lost an arm and like just
Mm-hmm.
like little things like that. You just got taken out of the movie for a minute. Um, so in some ways it was an okay opening. And I guess, I mean, this is a series, so I mean, it's not like imperative as like an opening that stands apart from everything else. Like you don't need a um in-depth refresher
No, yeah.
like for every single entry, I guess. Um, it's the whole debate we have on this podcast about series versus standalone movies. Like,
Yeah, and how engaging does the opener need to be? I mean,
mhm,
jumping us right into the action isn't always necessary.
mhm,
And sometimes it's more valuable to do that right away, right? I mean, we've seen bad examples of that with Marvel movies. We've seen good, simple examples of that, for example, in Back to the Future 3, right, which we just reviewed. A bunch of these things you see different examples of, and there's good ways and bad ways to do it. Overall, I liked how they opened this one, especially with the central focus on two key elements, right? One was Jake Sully. And you see that Jake Sully is kind of going through this arc where at the very beginning being the first film, he becomes this hero, right, among the Avatar, and he takes this control of things and really helps to lead the tribes. And these last two films have been mostly about Jake in some ways trying to more or less fade into the background a little bit. He doesn't want to have all this responsibility, all
mhm,
of this power, and they start this off real strong with him having this struggle inwardly with what happened to his son. And he goes, I don't know that I want to be this leader that everyone is wanting me to be. And they they get some pushback, especially with the clan they're currently with, the Metkayina or Metkayana, and that they want him to be this leader. And his family, in some ways, wants him to be with him, especially with them, right? I should say, especially Neytiri, who wants to, especially at this point in the film, do away with humans around them, especially because she's so angry with what happened to her son, and she takes that out in some ways on Spider, who is this human living among them. And
mhm,
so there's these ideas that are introduced very very quickly into the film, which are very pivotal ideas, and they help drive it, especially at the beginning of the film. So I really liked that. I thought they did that really well.
mhm,
And it wasn't just a introduction into the world. It's like, oh yes, here's Pandora, here are all the characters, here's the blue people that you really like,
mhm.
remember? It was actually adding to things that were important for the film as it progressed. So
Yeah.
I didn't think there was a bunch of wasted time at the beginning, which I appreciated, especially for a director who seems to have a tendency to really go, look at my awesome world and how cool it is, right? He didn't really do that at the beginning, and I appreciated that he
Mhm,
got into what was really important from a storytelling perspective
mhm.
for our characters.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I will say, based on my memory of the second movie,
mhm.
I do remember liking the second one less than the first one. And I think it's because there was more of an emphasis on visuals in the second one than on the storytelling itself. I feel like this is less about the visuals, the third one, and more about the story that they were trying to tell a little bit more.
Hmm.
But that being said, they did repeat things from the first two movies, so I can't say that it makes it better or that they actually did a good job. But felt like the story was more pivotal this time around as opposed to the second one for some reason for me. I don't know if that's what you came away with or if...
Yeah, well, it's like, for example, I think that one of the things that was lacking in the last one was this whole thing about the son Netayam. And even if you look briefly at all that goes on in
Mhm.
the second one, it's not that Netayam is a critical character as a being in the universe, other than they're just sad that he dies because he's related to them, which is,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that that's a good thing that he died, but it's just like there's less emotional stakes to him compared to other characters in the film. That being said, they do, as much as he's not a critical character, they capitalize on that pretty well in this film, just because you see that these other characters are reacting in a fairly reasonable way in how they are emotionally engrossed in the problem this has caused for them and how they feel about it. So, yeah, I would not say that the second one was amazing. I think our last review reflected that, but specifically in this one, I think that they turned some of those things around. So, especially with Jake, what are your thoughts on Jake Sully? I know I gave a little bit of a sneak peek on my
Yeah.
thoughts. What are your thoughts on him in this one?
Jake Sully as protagonist, I mean, when I think of memorable protagonists, Jake Sully usually doesn't make that list for me. Like the first two movies, especially, there was very little about him as a character that made me like, oh yeah, like he stood out for whatever reason. I mean, he's kind of your typical protagonist, hero, main character, individual. Um, the only thing about his character, I mean, he's the reluctant hero in some ways in the second and third one. So I mean, it's not like he's super like compelling. The only thing I saw about his character, which I found was interesting, and I noticed this echoed by some other people online too, was he's perhaps one of the few times in cinema history that we're given a positive portrayal of a father character. Because he's actually trying to be a good father, and he actually isn't like mocked or anything. He's like actually is a strong father leader in his own family. He is like respected. There's a lot of things about his character. Like, oh, actually, this is a positive portrayal of parenthood and fatherhood. So I was
Mhm.
like, that's one of the few like things about his character that stands out to me this time around. He is, as for his like struggles in the movie, I mean, he's not perfect. He struggles. He clearly doesn't want. He puts his family first, and he doesn't want to be the hero for all these people. And he is also, because of his military past, is like tends towards violence when he's
Mhm.
like in this place of grief. Um, with that being said, I do branch out a little bit into the world itself, Pandora. I
Sure.
know what I know what James Cameron was trying to do, and I see symbolically and thematically what he was doing. But logically, it makes no sense. The whole argument against guns and such by the Navi people not to use them was just dumb. I mean, I'm sorry, but there was just too many instances, and it's like the only reason the Navi people have survived the last two movies is because the All Mother got involved, and because the ships were surprise attacked by giant monsters out of
Yeah.
nowhere. So
Hmm.
there's never been an instance in these movies with the Navi's like natural weapons like had an edge or advantage over the humans' technology and guns. Now,
Hmm.
in certain instances, I mean, it does make for compelling conflict where it's like, okay, the villains clearly have the upper hand, but I mean, clearly this whole message, this whole thing with guns is like an environmental message. It's a thing,
Sure.
yeah, like you see where he's going with it. And it's like, okay, I see why. I just think it's dumb. I just felt like I needed to say that at some point.
Sure. Well, and it's like I was thinking about this too as I was watching. Is this reminded me in some ways of the stereotypical plot points that you get when you watch, for example, a Jurassic Park film, where you
Yeah.
kind of know where it's going to go. It has all the thing about the dinosaurs and how they're going to be there, and at the very end, some massive dinosaur just comes in and and they kill the big other bad dinosaur, and everyone else is saved. You know, you kind of know that's gonna happen at the end of the film. So in this one, you get some similar semblance of that when you have, we don't know what's going to happen. Oh no, nature flop. Okay, now the bad guys are dead. That pretty much happens in most of the Avatar films, and so if not all of them. And so it's like, yeah, you know that's what's going to happen in this film, and it's kind of like, okay, well, could we get at least a little more creative with that? And so this idea that they don't want to use guns is some sort of semblance of that, I think. But at the same time, you don't even get as strong of a case for that in this one as you do in the previous ones. And part of the reason for that is because you don't maybe get as much pushback in this one as you do in previous ones, because a lot of people do a 180 in this film, and it's not exactly clear why. And we'll get to more of those as we go. For example, with the whales, they have a little more development with that on why they turn, but and renounce their vow of peace or vow of nonviolence, whatever it is, versus in the example of the guns, not using the guns, it's pretty much like, oh, we're not going to use this. And Jake's like, you have to use it. You have to. We're going to die. And then they go, no, we're not going to. And then at the very end, you see Neytiri's just like slinging grenade arrows like nobody's business. And it's like, all right, well, so much for being totally anti this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a simplification, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, there is not a ton of explanation as to why people do 180s on these, other than it was convenient, or they finally understood the truth that, yeah, you need technology. I don't know, but it's not the strongest point in favor of this film.
Yeah.
I think that hitting on what you were saying about Jake, though, is 100% one of the things that I thought was better about this film was his inward struggles, especially as his father figure. And it's interesting insofar as it comes into conflict with especially the generic hero's journey, right? Where you have this idea that they accept the call and then go on the journey. In a lot of ways, Jake Sully has already gone on the journey, and he doesn't want to go on the journey again. He knows the struggle. He knows the sacrifice that has to occur. And yet he still feels this call to be this leader amongst his people and for everyone around him. And he goes, I want to pat her down. I want to go to just protecting my family and making sure they're safe. Because look what just happened. My son just died. I don't want to be involved in this. And this is a little bit with as the film progresses and the escalating stakes. So I'm going to get a little bit ahead here just to explain how far I think this goes. But it does it decently well, just in that you see he's trying to protect the family and still trying to keep them together and keep them happy. And it starts off with this character of Spider, and he has this conflict with his wife and with the kids, where the kids really like this character of Spider, and they like him as this friend, this pseudo-adopted son, if you will, of Jake and Neytiri. But Neytiri's like, he's got to go. He's not cool. I don't like any of the humans around us. We can't have this. And so you have this back and forth that goes on, and the result is you end up getting Jake trying to have his cake and eat it too, right? You see he's trying to say, well, how about this? We'll take him, and he's actually, as a side plot for Spider himself, he's reliant on air at this point, and the air of Pandora, the world that they're in, is not something he can breathe. So he has to have these masks that he's constantly wearing, and his masks are starting to die. They don't have the batteries and tools necessary to keep him alive if he stays where they're at. So they decide to go with the flying wind traders, I believe they're called, to take him somewhere else, basically, where he can have access to these resources and not be at risk of dying. But this also makes Neytiri happy, because then he won't be living with them anymore, and he won't be another human amongst the Na'vi. So he's trying to have both of these worlds, and this is still causes conflict. Like, the kids are like, no, we can't get rid of Spider. He's our friend. And Neytiri, even though he's kind of doing what she wants, she's still pissed at him, but she's still pissed at the universe. So whatever. I mean, he's not really getting what he wants, even though he's trying to do the right thing and trying to, reject the call, but also still be the good father. And as a result, they go on this journey and they get attacked by the Ash people, who are the Mangdoan, I believe. I'll look it up later, but the Ash tribe, who are these fighting group who wants to just basically watch the world burn and do not believe in the All-Mother, who is the sacred being who exists on Pandora. So this ends up causing a problem as they get crash land onto the middle of the forest and everyone gets lost, and then Jake's trying to save him again, right? So he's constantly trying to keep his family together, keep them happy, and as a consequence, the actions he takes actually causes bigger problems as people get lost, people get captured, people are about to die, all the way to the point where he's feeling like in order to save his family, way further along in the film, he should kill the character of Spider. And this is kind of like an Abrahamic moment for him, right? Where it's like the sacrifice
I was thinking
of the
that
son.
For some reason.
Yeah, it was very reminiscent of like
it was
a
very
religious,
strong biblical parallel.
yeah, yeah. And I think that was somewhat intentional. I'm not going to put all my chips on that, but it was interesting. The only nuance there is that he ends up just deciding himself that he's not going to kill Spider rather than getting a call from God to not kill the son. So it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, right? But it was reminiscent in a lot of ways. And at that point, that's where his character has his flip, and he realizes that in order to do what he needs to do to be the leader he needs to take on the responsibility, not just of his family, but of his calling to be this leader amongst his people and amongst all of the Na'vi, and to protect them against the RDA, who's trying to change Pandora for humanity to live in. So I thought that overall his arc wasn't amazing. I mean, in some ways it is pretty basic as much as it creates a positive view of the father figure. It's fairly predictable and fairly you could see it coming.
It's not a unique hero. It's not like someone who stands apart from other heroes. His journey as a whole is pretty basic and similar to others who are more memorable. But you think of them before you think of Jake.
Right.
So
all that to say is I didn't think it was bad. I thought that overall it was a solid telling of his arc, and I enjoyed it for what it was. Yeah. So not a slam on James Cameron in my view.
Yes.
So what were your thoughts as that progresses? Because once he takes on that responsibility and decides he's not going to kill Spider, he goes back to the Metcaina tribe, where then he gets the showdown between Colonel Miles Quaritch, Colonel Miles Quaritch and his gang versus the Metcaina and Jake. And Jake says, in order to stop this conflict, I'm going to give myself up so that you guys can take me and Spider as prisoners and leave everyone else to go free. So at that point, he sacrifices himself for the sake of the people and gets captured. What are your thoughts as the film has progressed at this point? Do you think that the development of tension in this film is compelling? Do you think they do it well?
Did we skip the villain discussion, or?
Yeah, in some ways, I guess. Do you want to talk about the villain first? I mean, that's probably
I almost feel
fair.
like we should, because I mean, just because of how Quaritch is involved in this movie.
Yeah,
sure. And also, to be perfectly frank, Quaritch is one of the more compelling parts of the Avatar movies at this point, for me.
Sure.
So
let's go into it. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Miles Quaritch?
So I mean, when he first started off, I mean, the first movie, he was the human, like, general leader, like, leading the RDA, the military part of the RDA, into Pandora, and Sully worked for him. So when Sully turns against the RDA, he sees it as a betrayal, tries to kill Sully, but then he ends up dying at the end of the first movie. Then they retcon him back into existence in the second movie with his consciousness being uploaded to a Na'vi body. Though, in retrospect, that was good motive, because it, like, gives him, like, bitterness and anger against Sully for killing off his human body, and it's like, and he's even though he's now Na'vi for all intents and purposes, he is still aligned with the humans and the RDA.
Right.
So at the end of the second movie, like, he knows he has a son living among the Na'vi. He still works for the RDA, but he has, like, so he still has this bitterness against Sully, and he's, like, trying to capture Sully, but he's also trying to find his son, because he genuinely cares about his son. At least, from what I remember the second movie, he genuinely cared. And that carries over to the third movie, where it's like, he has to make those, as a character, he has to make the choice, like, do I complete my orders, take Sully in, or do I go looking for my son in this jungle because he's lost somewhere out here and he may die if I don't find him? So it's like that tough dilemma for a character that he ends up making a decision on. um, and from there, it's just like you see him struggling with these moral decisions, and he also, and when he comes across the Ash tribe, uh, you see like this like slight romance develop between him and the leader of the Ash tribe leader. So like it just develops more of Quaritch's character in a certain way. So like he's not like, even though he is the stoic military commander, he does have a human side to him, and he does feel things, and he does have like rules he follows. But he's also like, but you also see the conflict in him, almost like this Darth Vader-esque conflict, where it's like, do I keep serving the RDA or do I go with what I actually kind of want?
Yeah.
So it became this more interesting like struggle in the midst of this movie that I was like kind of curious to see where it ended by the end of the movie, just to see like, will it come to a conclusion? Will he die? Will like, or what's going to happen? And by the end, we kind of didn't get a conclusion. So if we do get a fourth movie, I kind of hope they continue with Quaritch, just like, okay, well, at least give us a resolution here.
Yeah, well, and it wouldn't be completely unsurprising for them to just upload his consciousness to another avatar, and then he goes back out at it.
That's the thing about this movie, though. Does Quaritch actually die in this movie?
Oh my gosh!
I mean, technically, we don't see him die, and like they hint he could be dead, but it's also like it's just vague enough where it's like he could still be alive.
Yeah, I was getting some sort of like Ganondorf vibes from him in this one, where you go, okay, well, he might just be the eternal enemy to Jake Sully and just always shows up because that's what he does. I went, all right, maybe we'll continue to see him come around. I'm not so sure, but
well, I mean, I am genuinely curious if there is an overarching story arc for some of these characters. If he comes back, they could do the Darth Vader redemption arc with his character at some point. Like he could flip sides with everything that's happened at some point, but he would still have to deal with Spider's loyalty to the Sully family as opposed to him. So there's that whole thing. I mean,
yeah.
There's a Spider there that just like, I mean, even though Spider's not a hugely compelling character, he is like a key part of Quaritch's character.
Right.
And it's just like driving his character to do certain decisions. And
yeah. Well, and we'll get to Spider on his own because he definitely deserves his own discussion for sure. But yes, Miles Quaritch's character was pretty strong, especially in regards to the villains' arcs in this film. He is pretty compelling, I think, especially because he has this ironclad desire to push for the sake of the RDA, and this idea that you follow orders no matter what is such a strong aspect to who he is. And so when he has felt this dilemma of maybe I do violate orders for the sake of saving my son, you see him going down this other path, which is really unique, really interesting. Okay, well, what does this mean? What does this mean for someone who's violating his own consciousness in some ways because he feels like there's something greater he needs to fight for? It was pretty good in regards to that. I think that the reaction of Spider doesn't really help his case because Spider the entire time is like, no, I hate you. I want all of the RDA to die. Go screw yourselves. And then you go, okay, well, so much for that. But yeah, I think that his character is probably the strongest part, especially on the villains aspect. Everyone else on the villain side is pretty much garbage. I mean, talking about the Menkwang Ash people, talking about, I think her name is Varang, the leader of the Ash people. Like, I'm sorry, she's not interesting at all, in my opinion, other than her tribal voodoo magic. I think her voodoo magic is, like, okay, kind of interesting from a scenery perspective.
They tried to give Varang a compelling backstory. They tried, but through telling it, I feel like if they had shown it, and shown her responses in a more emotional setting, perhaps we would have cared about her more. Because they talk about the desolation that happened to her tribe when she was young, and about the deaths and trauma that it caused, but they don't show it. They tell you all this. They expect you to understand. So,
sure. Well, even beyond that, from just like what does this character add to this universe? The only thing she really does is, one, she makes the wind traders ship crash, which leads to the first conflict of the Jake Sully and his family. And then she helps to torture people to find out when or where Jake Sully and their family are later in the film. Those are really the only two things that she really adds anything of substance to that Miles Quaritch wouldn't have already done himself. So
Well, I
it's
would
like,
say she also developed Quaritch's character in certain regards. Like we saw other parts of him that we probably wouldn't have seen in other contexts, but that's not much. It's just something she does add. Not that she's a great character, but her presence in the movie does lead to that.
yeah, I mean, I also just don't think that the whole romance between Quaritch and her is that interesting at all. It's so like, oh, you got a new Navi girlfriend, so cool, Colonel Quaritch. Well, and you're like, what? Okay, now this is feeling even more lame because everyone's just spelling it out in the film. And I don't know. I didn't think that any of that was that worth it. I think everything else in regards to Miles Quaritch is very interesting.
Yeah.
But the whole Ash people thing was just weird.
I think the intention behind the Ash people, based on what I've read and what James Cameron has said, is that the Ash people are supposed to be a break from the mold of the first two movies. Because in the first two movies, we are consistently shown this image that the Navi people are always the good guys. They're always on the right side. They're always like, well, humans are always bad, evil. I think he realized that was becoming a trope because of the first two movies. So the third movie, he decided to buck the trend. It's like, okay, there are evil Navi people in this world. We just haven't met them yet. So the whole idea with the Ash people is to present a counter narrative to the Navi, where it's like, okay, there are messed up Navi individuals in this world. So
yeah, and if they didn't seem like such a basic villain crew, I maybe would have appreciated it more. And that probably goes more to what you were just saying about Varang being more developed as a character via showing her as in the conflict she's gone through rather than just telling us, oh, she had this traumatic thing that happened in the past, and so she has good reason to hate all of the other Navi people and the All-Mother and all of that. It's like, okay, I think that you might be right, and maybe even going into future films, maybe they'll develop that more and make it more interesting and more nuanced, right? Especially because you have 3-hour films, so you should have the time to do that in a 3-hour film. Otherwise, what are you doing? I don't know. I just didn't think. I think both the Menkwang clan and then also the rest of the RDA, other than Miles Quaritch, are just very basic, very stock, and so you're not getting a lot from them as characters. All of that cachet is poured into the Colonel.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he is important, especially as the story progresses, and he ties into the conflict with Jake, where he actually allies with Jake at points in the film to help try to find Spider and the rest of the family so that they both know that the people they care about are alive. Did you think that those developments of conflict in this film were compelling?
Honestly, I really like it when a movie does that well, where a situation forces the villain and hero to work together, because they're definitely diametrically opposed, but suddenly they have a common goal, whether they like it or not. And suddenly, like, okay, we hate each other, but we actually have a reason to be working together for the time being. And so it creates a sense of conflict in the moment for the whole duration that they're working together, because like they could like attack each other at any moment if they wanted to, but because they each have this goal was like, oh, we need this, they have to put their personal feelings aside just to make sure this thing gets done. So and that's one of those things I actually did like about this movie, is like some of those scenes are actually done well enough where it's like, okay, this makes sense and this works really well for what is happening. So when and even then, where it's like when he teams up, he's like, he has him handcuffed, and he's like, even though they're working together, he's like, no, you can, like, he refuses to take the handcuffs off. He's like, you can track him like that. It's just...
And they continue that throughout the film to the very end, where you see that Miles Quaritch and Jake Sully are there fighting each other with Spider in the middle of them, as they're both trying to get the edge over the other while also not trying to kill this character who's kind of running between them and trying to figure this whole situation out. Did you think they developed things well to the end of the film, where there is that climactic scene in addition to the climactic battle with the Tulkun in the sea?
In some ways, yes. Um, I mean, the reality is it doesn't really come to a full like end climax in some ways. I mean, because Jake and Quaritch are still kind of alive at the end of their conflict. So, I mean, there's not really a resolution per se, especially if Quaritch just throws himself off the side and supposedly dies in the
Hmm.
fire and Maelstrom. But, um, I mean, because they both kind of stop their fight to save Spider in
Hmm.
that moment. So I mean, I guess it could be seen as a conflict resolution, but they are still kind of antagonistic towards each other at that final moment. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well,
I mean,
it's
Jake
it.
Sully is more like considering like keeping him alive, but Quaritch like assumes that he's gonna die or they're gonna kill him or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Well, the thing that I think is the hang up, which is why I felt like this was somewhat of a Ganondorf reincarnation, right? Where he constantly is coming back, is because you have all of this buildup around this idea that, well, maybe Quaritch will change. Maybe he will become on the side of the good guys. And this is constantly the offer that Jake Sully is giving to him. Like, hey, maybe you could actually see what's good in the world. And there's this constant denial of that by Miles Quaritch. And even at the end, when he's like, hey, look what all is going on. Look at all this destruction. Why don't you look at your son, and all of this. And then Miles Quaritch is like, deuces, I'm out. And then just drops back and then he's gone. Then all of this is kind of like, okay, so he started and ended at the same spot as the villain, right? It's
mhm.
even though he had these interesting ideas, he goes back to his old ways. And we've seen really terrible examples of that with characters like Jaime Lannister in the Game of Thrones series. But that's a whole nother sad discussion. But the idea that these characters do not end up coming to any new conclusions or new developments either means one, we need a new film that this does terminate in something different or something unique being added to this arc, or two, it's just going to be a rinse and repeat over and over again. You're not going to get anything new.
You know what I kind of hope they do if they do a fourth Avatar movie?
Mm-hmm.
I hope the RDA they just assume Quaritch is dead and they reboot a new body with Quaritch's mind inside of it. So there's now another Navi with Quaritch's mind inside of it, and when Quaritch actually survives the fire or maelstrom, whatever comes back, he discovers RDA has already replaced him with his own self, more or
Yeah.
less. And then we would see what his reaction is to that fallout and what he
Yeah.
does. That is what I kind of would like to see in the fourth one.
And that
So,
would be interesting. It would force his character arc further down the line as he has to figure that out. Yeah,
yeah.
that'd be really interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah. I mean, for my own part, for the ending of the film, I thought that this is where they tie it together somewhat, and we mentioned briefly all these other arcs that are going on, and we'll
Mm.
get to those in the side characters just because the way we've discussed it so far, it looks pretty cohesive, but as honestly,
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes on in the middle that we haven't even
Yeah.
discussed
So,
because
I mean,
it wasn't for the main through point. It wasn't for the main plot that was going on, and it added at the end during this big fight.
mhm.
But in and of itself, it felt a little confusing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I thought that the ending helped somewhat tie it together, but it felt like a repeat of the last one, where the whales come back and they save them again. So, I don't know. Welcome to nature, everyone. This is Pandora. And yeah, another 30 minutes of ad-free music. Just kidding. That's a different app. I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was that good, but it came to the conclusion you would expect from an Avatar film.
Yeah.
With that being said,
Yeah.
did you think the themes that they developed in this film were compelling? Did you think that Jake Sully stood for anything, or that there was any significant messages they were trying to convey here?
Um, I mean, I was just going to briefly mention that even though we've been talking about Jake Sully as the main character of this movie, the reality this movie does focus on several characters, which they would almost be the central main characters as well. Jake Sully is clearly one of those main characters, if not the main character. But there are enough characters who have enough screen time, you wonder if you should label them main characters or side characters. And as far as like the only reason to bring that up is because it's hard for me because of all these other side plots going on to just like say what the major theme of the movie is outside the typical like environmentalism versus like I guess they'd say either some people would like to say capitalism, some would say just human like greed, I guess.
Hmm. Sure.
So um it just I mean that's clearly one of the central tenets of the whole Avatar movies, like from 1, 2, and 3, is greed versus environmentalism, protecting nature. Other than that, there are definitely ideas of like faith and just like because the question of like, will the All Mother like protect us and help us, or is our faith just doomed? Like
Hmm.
that's definitely a central theme of this movie as well. And that's I mean, especially with the Ash people, like they question, like they say she doesn't answer, she like they don't have faith anymore.
Right.
So, other than the ideas of faith, there's also the ideas of uh like just family and just like I mean this is like become a thing with the second one and it just continues in the third one where like the Sully family just like the loyalty, the bonds that tie them together, do they stand strong in the midst of these like dark moments? And then see that kind of tested with Neytiri and Spider, where it's like he's kind of the adopted son, and she has this new hatred for humans, his race, and she wants to get rid of him, but by the end she renounces that hatred and
Hmm.
embraces him as one of her own because she realizes it's like she rejects hatred and she can't live hating. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's all these like themes and ideas like just run throughout the movie concurrently at the same time. I kind of still want to say environmentalism and greed is the kind of still the central tenet. I mean, you could maybe make a case for Sully and the whole like accepting your calling kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
he's called to be this hero again and he doesn't want to.
Hmm.
So I mean, yeah, that's those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I'd probably lean more, especially toward the Jake Sully one, just because maybe I'm biased because that's what I mainly picked up on in the film. But I
Hmm.
definitely saw a very strong idea that once you have a calling and a responsibility and you've accepted that once, you can't just put it down, right? You
Hmm.
have to accept that call. You have to accept that responsibility and continue to live in that because that's the responsibility you've been given. And you see that especially around his family and around the people that he is with. There's even some question about who is your family? What does it mean to be with your family? And they hinted at this in the last one with the Metcaina clan, and they accept them into the clan, saying you are part of us now. And then you see that developed more around Spider in this one, where you see he is accepted into the clan by the end, or into all of the Na'vi people, in
Mm.
addition to being accepted into Jake Sully's family. So there is, yeah, a lot of these ideas are definitely prevalent in that, and of course, the environmental theme is a strong one, as always in the Avatar series. So maybe that's a foregone conclusion in my part. So I didn't think too hard about it, but I also don't think that one's very nuanced either. It's
No,
very
it's not.
much
No.
it's very stock in the regards to this is nature, don't mess with nature. This is society developing their own technology, and
Hmm.
technology is bad and destroys things, and greed causes all of these problems, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are definitely there. I'm not going to say they aren't.
Yeah. There's a reason the Avatar movies are called Alien Pocahontas.
Yeah,
It's just like,
exactly. So with that being said, I think it's fair to get into some of those side characters so we can get a little more of that nuanced view. What are your thoughts on Spider in this film? Clearly, he is the human that lives amongst the Na'vi. Do you think he's a compelling side character? What are your thoughts?
I noticed, I'm not sure if I remember this the second movie, but with this movie, I especially noticed that he feels like he feels contradictory. Where it's like when he's among the humans, he turns into this like savage, like beast, almost like rebellious against everything, kind of, you know. But then when he's among the Navi, he changes, becomes a different character. Like his outlook and his demeanor changes completely, depending on which group of people he's with.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know. Like it wasn't a consistent character. I feel like he had was forced to play a role in each circumstance according to what they needed. So for other characters and for certain conflicts. So because there are times he's definitely kind of on the annoying side, but then there's other times where he's just like, I I don't know why he's acting like this, like or why he thinks this is effective. He's grown up among humans, so I mean, he's seen this. I don't know. Like I find his character just questionable. So
Sure. And are there specific scenes you're thinking of for maybe it's back at the RDA's location? Or are you thinking of more when he's amongst the Jake Sully's family? Like what specifically you feel like you see the most
well, mostly
discontinuity
when
with
he
him?
is captured by the RDA, when they're like trying to capture him, or he's in there
Hmm.
like he acts a specific way. It's only when Quaritch is around, when he's not undercover, that he acts differently among humans. Or I guess when he's with the humans of uh, who are living among the tribe.
Hmm.
Um, uh, um, I get the impression that he's kind of the problem child a little bit, where he's just like just doing whatever he wants, kind of thing. It's like
Hmm.
trying to show, oh, I can do this too. Um, Trying to be like the Navi people in every way he can till he gets his wish. Um, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's
So,
constantly trying to prove himself. And I think that
mhm.
it's not. I kind of go back and forth with his character arc as a character. I'm going to say right off the bat, I don't think the actor is a very good actor. I think
Mhm.
that in regards to how he portrays him, a lot of the emotions he portrays in the scenes are not believable. So I
Mhm.
don't think that as an actor, he does a very good job of making Spider's character compelling. But in regards to the arc itself, I thought it was okay. There's a lot of instrumental things about him that are very, very important in this film. The idea that he can't breathe at first, and then that now that he can breathe,
Mhm.
that was a very good ad in my opinion, because it
Yeah.
goes from okay, he's not now he's in a better situation, but also now they have proof that humans, if they get this mycelium, whatever it is that he has in his lungs,
Mhm.
into other humans as well, they now could live without the breathing masks on Pandora. That changes a lot. It makes the world a lot more livable for humanity if they end up getting and figuring out how to recreate this environmental addition to humanity. So it was like a good and then also a consequence to that. So I think that there was a lot of things like that they did very well, and the struggle that Jake had, the struggle that the Colonel had, and all of these things were good additions in regard to the character of Spider. That being said, he's still constantly proving himself throughout the entire film, and that doesn't really change. He's constantly hating on the Colonel, and that never changes. There's a lot of things about him that stay pretty static as a character, and by the end, he kind of, I mean, gets his cake and eats it too. You know, it's not like they
Mhm.
really force him in a situation that makes him that he himself has to do something different or change as a character, right? He is an
Well,
instrument for everyone else to interact around. So,
he's never really given a dilemma, if that makes sense. He's given things are forced upon him, but he's never like given like a moral dilemma like Jake Sully and Quaritch have to do at points in the movie.
mhm.
He is just thrown into situations, and we're expected to empathically just believe and like want this, whatever, just like without giving a lot of emotional weight to do so. If
Yeah,
that makes
and
any sense.
no, it does,
Sorry.
and I think that there's a couple very small things they could have done to make his character phenomenally better, right? For
Hmm.
example, one, him starting to actually like his dad would have added a lot of interesting aspects to him as a character, right? The idea that maybe comes to the conclusion that maybe he doesn't want to be part of the Navi tribe, or maybe he should question really needing their acceptance, right? These different ideas could have really added more nuance to his character and made him struggle with things, especially now that he's growing into adulthood. These are questions he should be asking himself. And so the only termination we get is at the end, everyone says, you know what, never mind. We like Spider. Become one of us. Become one of the Navi, as he enters into this I want to say like psychic trance. I don't even remember exactly how we got to the tree at the end. But you know, that whole scene is basically just the ending of that arc where he goes, "All right, yep, I'm good now. We're all good. Yay." And that's that. So it's interesting just to see a character like that where he is so instrumental to the story that it's not like I would say axe him because he needs to be there,
Hmm.
but also he could have been so much better than he was, and it
Hmm.
wouldn't have needed a lot.
Yeah. So he will also be interesting uh going forward if they make Avatar movies because
Hmm.
with this particular movie, they could have like set the groundwork to turn him into like a Christ figure for later movies because he is one of both worlds now in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be
You
interesting.
mean like just the reconciliation between the two groups,
Yeah,
humanity and the Na'vi?
yeah. Like, because in
Mm-hmm.
some ways he is like, because he is human, but he's also accepted by the Na'vi now, and he's like, his biology has now been changed because of that. There are several ways they could take it in future movies, and he could become like a Christ figure in a storytelling sense for
Mm-hmm.
like future events. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And once again, that speaks to the idea that they have a lot of really good and interesting pieces that they could be using in these films. It's not like they haven't laid good groundwork. And I even said that from the beginning of this film. Like this film
yeah.
had a lot of good things going for it
Oh, yeah.
from the start. It just gets very convoluted in the middle. And we just started on that. Like we even, I mean, we should probably get to Neytiri now. Like, what are your thoughts on Neytiri as the wife of Jake Sully? Do you think she's compelling? What are your thoughts on her?
I think she is one of the more compelling side characters in this movie just because of her struggle with hatred. And like, she clearly hates humans, but she also cares about our family. And she's just struggling internally with what happened to her oldest son and like where she actually stands in regards to humanity and to all this conflict. Because she clearly doesn't want peace. Like she wants to kill the humans at this point. But then it was like she has to struggle. Like, and at one point she even, well, I found it kind of ironic that to sneak into the compound, she dresses in the garb of the Ash people so she can get by them. But in some ways, she's like outwardly playing like what she kind of is struggling with internally, like the hatred and destruction that she kind of wants to inflict.
Yeah.
So, but that's her
Yeah.
way to get into the RDA's compound.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because I distinctly recall severely disliking her character in the first two films. So the fact that I actually kind of liked her in this one was pretty surprising to me. But I think that does kind of go to what you were saying. Beyond that, just how she likes to see everything black and white. She likes to say, this is good and this is bad. This is evil and this is just, right? This person should live or this person should die. There is like no middle ground. And so the way that they took her and made her actually struggle with things and have to figure out what Neytiri wants, like, and what should she do? Because now she feels some responsibility around Spider, especially as she's helped with, I mean, Spider's helped with the family and keep people alive in ways that maybe she hadn't acknowledged previously. Like she has to then realize that the thing she's been advocating for example, like Spider dying, maybe isn't the right thing and maybe she's wrong. And so her having to struggle with that and come to conclusions on that added a lot to her character. And I think that it forced her to come to conclusions she wasn't ready or willing to come to. And I think they did that very well. So yeah, I think that they didn't need a lot to develop her too much in this film. I'm not going to say she has a ton of, well, she has a decent amount of screen time. It is a 3-hour long movie, so I shouldn't say that. But they utilize it fairly well for the screen time she has, and I thought she was overall a solid ad. And that being said, she has a whole like side thing where she goes off and like heals and gets healing and talks to the old tribe that they used to be a part of and all this stuff that there's another side tangent we didn't even discuss, but it adds to screen time. So there is that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, I think the last two that deserve a discussion would be Loak, their son, and the whole Tolkien Pakayan, I think is the whale's name, or Payakan, something like that. That whole arc. So I think Loak deserves a discussion, and then Kiri, the daughter of the Avatar for Sigourney Weaver. So which do you want to discuss?
Wait, you said 2 or 3 characters. I'm sorry. I had
2. Sorry.
Okay.
The adopted daughter, and then who's trying to like plug into the All Mother Wi-Fi router, and then the Loak who likes to talk to whales.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll start with Loak. I mean, he's an interesting side plot. I mean, you see he's trying to become a man that his father is proud of. Like he's also trying to prove himself like Spider is, though in a different way. Because he feels like he's still kind of a child, but he's also like acting immature in certain situations. Um, and he's also kind of like disrespecting tradition in some cases, where it's like he tries to like because he wants to speak or he wants to say or do something. He so he has an interesting arc per se over the movie. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how compelling it was. I don't remember. I mean, I wasn't hugely drawn to his character watching the movie. I was like, I understood what he was going through, but it wasn't like I wanted to see a huge like pot. I wasn't like looking forward to see how his arc ended, if that makes sense. In fact, there was like I think a few moments in the movie where like we cut from like key action scenes to Loak doing something, and I kind of got annoyed internally. I was like, "Oh, we're going back to this now." It just was like because I didn't really care what happened with Loak in this particular moment. I cared more about what we were just at.
Right.
It just was like, okay. Um. So
well, I think for him, I don't know if you saw this, but I didn't see a lot of real consequences for his actions, right?
No, there's not.
Little, like, don't you do that. Don't you do that, Loak.
There is
bad.
no consequences for his actions, pretty much. I mean, there are times he gets into life or death situations, but those are like few and far between, and it's not like he gets hurt per se by it. It's like because he gets rescued or something happens. It's just like, so there's not really a consequence for his actions. He's just kind of going through it in some ways where it's like Spider, things are happening to him, but he doesn't really have a and while he does make decisions, they're often the wrong decision. There's no negative consequence for what he did per se. It's just, he's kind of given a free pass, if you will, every time something happens. And in the end, he is accepted by his father. Though, I mean, in some ways, it's an okay scene. It's not a bad scene because it's like, okay, he is like showing that he cares for Loak, and he sees like he cares for Loak, and he like sees him growing into a man, and he does like want to see that continue. So I mean, there is like, but it's also like they also felt kind of unearned a little bit.
Sure. I think the only pushback I would say is you do get one scene where he does kind of learn, quote unquote, to become more of an adult amongst the Na'vi, and that's when the children are running away after the wreck at the beginning of the film. He doesn't really know what to do, and everyone else pushes him to make the decisions to figure out what's going on because he's the oldest son of Jake Sully, and it's his sisters and Spider who are there, and Spider's about to die because he can't breathe, and so he is forced to take on the reins of responsibility and figure things out. And in that moment, he does shine, I'd say, fairly well. Where he struggles with that, but then just realizes this is what he must do and takes on the responsibility of the situation. And so they did that very well. I appreciated that. But yeah, other than that scene, everything else that you have with him is him going, well, I'm going to go to the whales, and everyone else goes, don't you go to the whales? And he goes, I'm going to do it. And he does it. And then everyone's like, okay, I guess you made a good point. Maybe we'll all just agree with you now. And he once again has his cake and eats it too. So not really any real struggle for him other than he did the instrumental thing we needed for the sake of the plot to bring the whales to fight the RDA by the end of the film. So instrumentally effective. Storytelling wise, I don't really think it was that compelling.
Yeah. I actually completely forgot about that scene where he gets pushed into that responsibility role, and but now that you mention it, I do remember, and that actually is a good scene. So that actually that is one of the few scenes that is good for his character in the movie. So,
and it's easy to forget once again because he has a huge side plot all about the whales, and that's a big part of his thing. And it's so long. It's a 3-hour-long movie. And so the fact that you would remember that is kind of ridiculous. I mean, if you were to cut this out into episodes, like 20-minute episodes, this is, a 9-episode season.
This could have been a whole TV show. Yeah.
Right. So not incredibly surprising. Yeah. With that being said, what are your thoughts on Kiri, who she's instrumental in regards to more or less reviving the All-Mother in like a new way with the underwater Wi-Fi router, because I'm going to keep calling it that. What are your thoughts on Kiri in this film?
Kiri. Sh- she sounds older than she looks. Uh, just
I wonder
saying.
why.
I'm just saying. Uh, Other than that, I mean, she was also. I mean, in a she's also been set up as a Christ character, but this is due back in the second movie, the prior movie, not this one. Because I mean,
Hmm.
she is born of the avatar of Sigourney Weaver's character from the first movie. Like it was almost a miracle birth. Like there's no actual father. There is no like she has a mother per se, but there's no like like so it's like it's almost like okay, where like who is she? Like she has this mystical connection to the All Mother that no one else, none of the other Navi have because of
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like in both the second and third movie, like part of the reason the All Mother gets involved is because Kiri like reaches out to her and like asks for help like directly. so
Hmm.
so she is kind of instrumental to the plot. Um, Other than that, she's just a like love interest for Spider's character in
Right.
this movie. That's
Which is, that's so weird, bro. I just knew from the start they were gonna go there with it, but I was still, as I'm watching it, going, "Oh my gosh, this is just so weird, bro.
it's
I can't get over this."
yeah. I mean, you can interpret this so many ways, and it's just like I don't know what James Cameron's purpose was for this particular thing in the movie, but I'm like, I mean, I really don't know. I just like,
I don't like a lot of the conclusions that I come to with
yeah,
this, but yeah,
but it is
um,
weird. It is a strange part of the movie.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah. I mean, it's not like her character's necessarily bad per se. I mean, it starts off well with that original birthright, and then in addition with the whole thing where she keeps having seizures trying to connect to the All Mother via these Wi-Fi routers, just laying around in the grass or in the ocean. I think it was okay in regards to that, and then they develop it more as this film progresses. This is in some ways not quite the termination of what we saw in the second one, but a lot closer to the termination of that as she connects up to the All Mother, and then they have that Guardians of the Galaxy esque scene where everyone connects to the All Mother, and then she can stop having seizures, and whatever that's supposed to mean. Then the All Mother makes the whole what was it? The flux, the distortion in the air. The what was it called? Magnetic
yeah,
flux. That's what it's
yeah.
called,
Mm.
and
She
that
also brings
causes everything to break.
the carnivore squids. They come back.
Oh yeah.
They,
She commands the squids
she
from
commands the
Mario
squids.
Kart to attack.
The
Yeah.
squids from Mario Kart.
So
The mini
she was
krakens come
fine.
out.
Yeah, exactly. Baby Krakens. Baby Kraken attack. Yeah, I mean, she was basically the key that caused the All Mother to do the nature arc, where it's like, once again, nature wins. Haha. Screw you, capitalism. So, whatever. I thought that it's a little trite. I thought her character and the developments of her personally were fairly interesting, but it ended up being pretty basic by the end of the film. So, and that's what you got with a lot of these. I mean, there's so many characters with so many arcs going on, with so many things going on within the arcs, that it's not surprising that a lot of them terminate rather tritely. But it was fine. I mean, it got a 6 for me, right? So I'm not entirely surprised by that, but
Yeah. Well, our
it's pretty
score
much
is
what you got.
really. I mean, our scores kind of tell the fact that this movie wasn't a bad movie per se. It just
Hmm.
wasn't great. I mean, like it did some stock things throughout it, and it's like it had so much happening that it's like it felt like Spider-Man 3 or something where like so many plot lines are happening at once and you have to like you're jumping all over the place, like following all these different things. And it
Hmm.
just like it didn't feel like a cohesive story sometimes, which is like you're jumping between like characters. So
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
which is why we kind of said that should be a TV show season because there's so much things happening.
yeah, yeah. That's what you get for sure.
Mhm.
And that's most of it. What are your thoughts on the lasting impact of this film? Do you think this film will have a lasting impact? Did you think we're going to see more of the Avatar series? What are your thoughts?
That's the question. That really is the question, because I mean, it really depends on if people go out to see this movie or not. Um, if they continue with this series, I would be very curious to see where they go with the fourth one,
Mhm.
because of the way this movie ended and what they set up already in these movies, they could do some very interesting things story wise with the fourth one. I kind of hope they do, because I would like to see those things happen. I'd like to see a good story, and I like to see like plot twists and whatnot. I like to see good things. So they have that set up. The question is, will they make enough money with this particular entry to get a fourth movie? Because there's a lot of evidence to suggest the second one did not do as well as they'd hoped, and this is kind of like a Hail Mary for James Cameron to see if he can keep the series going. Because they already started the third one well before they finished the second one. So we are going to get three.
Yeah.
The question is, where are we going to get fourth? I don't know. It just depends on if audiences find this movie acceptable enough over everything else that's in theaters right now. So
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the last year's or the last film. It was at that point. It's one of the most expensive films ever made, The Way of Water, the second one, to be clear, right? And that one cost between 350 and 460 million. They don't know the number, but it's somewhere around there. And I think part of that too is because they were shooting 2 and 3 at the same time, right? So that's not entirely surprising. That which one do you allocate the cost to? We're not exactly sure. That being said, the box office I'm seeing is $2.3 billion is what it earned. And I don't know if that was just like over a significant period of time is what it accrued back. I'm not sure. I think that could also speak to, right, the first one doing well enough that everyone wanted to continue to watch what happened in the second one. And sometimes you see this lag, if you will. You saw this, for example, with the Back to the Future series, where the first one did very well. The second one did even better. And then the third one did kind of worse, even though I would say the third one was much better than the second one. But the second one left a lot lacking in the Back to the Future series. And so people weren't as anticipatory of the third one. I think you might get something similar with this one, where the first one did very well. The second one was highly expected, and then maybe people found it lackluster, and then the third one doesn't earn as much. I wouldn't be surprised of that scenario. I know so far.
Well, looking it up now, I see that it actually technically did do well financially. It just didn't match expectations at the time for when it came out. People were expecting more out of it, and it didn't do as well as people hoped it would. So
you're right, which makes sense, especially because the universe and how much effort they put into it is huge for this. And so the idea that maybe it doesn't do as well could make people question why. And if you're not chronically storyline focused like we are, it may not be as clear. I know for this one so far, it cost over $400 million to create for the third one, Fire and Ash. And the box office as of this weekend has generated $345 million, right? So at least it's gotten close to the cost it made to develop it. And maybe it probably will surpass that, to be honest, as the weeks progress and more people go to the theaters to watch it. So we'll see for sure, but it's optimistic at the very least. So there's a good chance that it ends up getting a fourth one, and they're already technically slated to have a fourth and fifth one made. The question is, will they actually make them?
Yeah.
So,
well, no, I know. Yeah, years ago we were told there was going to be 5 Avatar movies. Like they'd already planned this out. But James Cameron did raise question if there would be another one after this, because he said he was going to end the third one in ways that it could technically end on the third one if a fourth one didn't get made. And we kind of did see that. I mean, most of the major plot threads were tied up by the end of this third movie. So, I mean, if there is another Avatar movie, you could technically... It left things in a way that you could see it as an ending. So, is it a satisfying ending? It's an okay ending. It's not a great ending, but it's like, okay. But
right. So that's what you got.
Thoughts. So
no, and that's fair. I think that it will be interesting to see. I'd like to see a fourth one just to see some of the arcs you even brought up on this episode, because it would be interesting to see some of those things come out. So I would be excited.
It's assuming they do what I just said, because they can screw it up.
Yes, and we've seen plenty of that, especially in recent cinema. So I would not appreciate that, but hopefully they don't, and we'll see. We'll see for sure. Hopefully in the near future. But for that all being said, I think that's all we got for today. So
Yeah.
we hope you all enjoyed. We'll be back as we always are next week. We'll see you all then.